Hello everybody, welcome to Crocodile Dundee's Stamina Necromancer build. Today I'll be going over my Stamina Necromancer because that's all people seem to want to play. So yeah, let's get into it. Alright, to begin with, I'm going to go over the character sheet. I'm a Dark Elf. Ideally for this build you'd want to be an Orc, but I'm not. Attributes, you want 20 into health, 44 into stamina. Your Mundus needs to be the Shadow. You're going to be using Lava Foot, Soup, and Sultry, so the past food in content as well. Just keep that in mind. And you need to be a Stage 2 Vampire to sustain properly. Otherwise, it's just really hard without that 10% extra regen boost. Alright, going over gear. You want 5-piece Perfected Reliquins. I don't have it, so I'm just using non-perfect. And 5-piece either Deadly or Laquestes. If you can't maintain a 75% uptime on Major Slayer with Laquestes in a trial, you're not getting enough synergies or whatever reason, then you're better off using Deadly. And so all of your armor is going to be Divines, medium, with maximum stamina chance. Your jewelry is going to be all Bloodthirsty, all weapon damage and chance. If your group needs to push specific bosses into certain health thresholds, so for example, if you wanted to push Laquestes into flight phase really fast, then you would want to have 1 or 2 infused jewelry. That way your burn overall is slightly lower, but it's more even throughout the fight, which in some cases is better than just doing less damage throughout the entire thing and then doing monstrous damage in execute. For your weapons, you want to have the Maelstrom's dual wield set. You need a dagger and an axe, doesn't matter which slot they're in. The only thing that matters is which slot the trait is in. So you want your Nirn-honed weapon, could be the dagger or the axe, Nirn-honed weapon in your main hand, and you want your sharpened weapon in your offhand. So, and for enchants, don't worry, because we're going to be using double dot poison, which you can make with Nirnroot, Nightshade, and Fleshfly Lava, I believe. And lastly, your back bar weapon is the Master's Bow. For the Master's Bow, you want it infused with a weapon damage enchant. Just some gear sets you can replace these with if you don't have them. You can't really replace the Maelstrom's set just because it's essential, this build. So that you can't get away with not having. So go into Maelstrom, farm it up. But everything else you can kind of swap around. If you don't have Deadly or you don't have Laquestes, you can use Leviathan. You can use Briarheart. Same thing with your body. You can use all of that. You don't even have to have perfected Laquestes. You can have non-perfected. Still works. It's just that you miss out on 5% extra crit, which really does do a lot of damage overall. For your bow, if you don't have the Master's Bow, you can use the Maelstrom's Bow. It's not going to pull as much damage, but you can. And if you don't have the Maelstrom's Bow, a Bow of Agility, at the very least, will do better. Alright, going over skills now. So your front bar is going to be Rending Slashes, Rapid Strikes, Barbed Trap, Detonating Siphon, Consuming Soul Trap, and Pestilent Colossus. Your back bar is going to be Detonating Siphon again, Skeletal Archer, Blast Bones, Poison Injection, Arrow Barrage, and Colossus again. Just to go over where things are and why they're there. The reason you have Pestilent Colossus double barred and you don't have Dawnbreaker on your front bar anymore is because there's a passive which increases your crit chance by 10% for each Gravelord ability you have slotted. And that 10% extra crit and execute is actually more powerful than the passive 3% weapon damage you're going to get from Dawnbreaker because it got nerfed with this patch. Keep that in mind. On your back bar, Detonating Siphon, this slot here is your flex spot. In this you could put a heal. You could put, Ring of Preservation. You could put, I don't have it unlocked, but you could put Vigor. That's just there for anything you need to put in. You don't necessarily have to have Detonating Siphon, it's just there because it gives you 3% extra damage. So yeah, if you don't need a heal, you don't need anything, just put Detonating Siphon there and you should be good to go. Now we'll go over passives. In Grave Lord, you want all 4 passives. In Bone Tyrant, you want Death Gleaning. That's going to give you mag and stam while one of your summoned things dies. In this case, it's going to be Blast Bones and Skeletal Archer. You also want Last Gasp. That's going to give you 1250 max health, which is why we can, even though I'm a Dark Elf, I can get away with running all stamina enchants. Otherwise, that and it allows me to use Pass Food. If I didn't have that extra health, I would just be too squishy, and it just wouldn't be worth it. In Living Death, you want to consume Corpse, and you want Undead Confederate. It's going to give you a lot of recovery, and ult when you use Detonating Siphon on Blast Bones, but we'll come to that. Dual Wield, all the passives. Bow, all the passives. Armor, just medium armor passives. You're not going to use any light or heavy armor. The only passive you don't need is Improved Sneak. This doesn't affect your DPS at all. So as long as you have Dexterity, Windwalker, Agility, Athletics, you should be good for a trial. In the Vampire skill line, you want Supernatural Recovery, 2 out of 2. It's going to give you 10% mag and stam recovery when you're at stage 2. Really, really important on this build. And you also want Unnatural Resistance, because if you're going to be a vampire, you might as well have a little bit more in the way of resistance. Fighters Guild, you want Intimidating Presence to reduce the cost of Barb Trap, Slayer for more weapon damage, Banish the Wicked for more ult, and Skill Tracker just so Barb Trap does a bit more damage. Racial, you want all your racial passives. I'm a Dark Elf, so I have all my Dark Elf passives. And for Alchemy, you want Medicinal Use 3 out of 3. It's really important if you want to keep up 100% uptime on your weapon power pot buffs, you need Medicinal Use. Really important. A lot of people forget about this. You should. It adds a lot of DPS just by itself. Before we go into the rotation, just make sure you have Essence of Weapon Power Pots. I forgot to mention earlier. They're going to give you Major Brutality, Savagery, a lot of stamina, and stam recovery. Really, really strong. So you make these with Blessed Thistle, Dragon Thorn, and Wormwood, or you can replace Wormwood with Water Hyacinth. But personally, I just use Wormwood because Water Hyacinth is needed for spell power pots, which cost more. Anyway, onto the rotation. I'm going to take off poison so I don't use any. So the rotation for this build is static. It's not difficult. It's just about weaving. Like my Dragonite, it's just weaving. It's not complex. So to begin with, you always want to summon your archer. So once you've summoned your archer, you want to use Blast Burn, swap to your front bar, use Trap Beast, and swap back to your back bar. You want to make sure you do this really fast. Otherwise, when you come back to your front bar after your back bar rotation, you're not going to be able to cast Detonating Siphon because Blast Burns' corpse will be gone. So you want to cast Archer, Blast Bones, Trap, Swap. Nice and quick, get it done. If you're having trouble, I'll explain that in a second actually. So, Archer, Blast Bones, Trap, and then it's going to be Hail, Injection, Swap. If you have your ultimate up, it would be Hail, Injection, Colossus, Swap, but I don't at the moment. So once again, it's going to be Archer, Blast Bones, Trap, Swap, Hail, Injection, Colossus if you have it. And then after that it's going to be Rapids, Soul Trap, Detonating Siphon, Rapids, Rending Slash, Swap. Now I have had trouble in the past just getting through that first bit of the rotation at the very beginning. Though, even though I can do it now, it's still a bit wonky. So what you can do is instead of casting Blast Bones like that, you can just go Skeletal Archer, Trap, without casting Blast Bones, and then go Hail, Injection, Blast Bones, swap, and then continue the front bar rotation. That's that. After this, the rotation is completely static. So the rotation will look like this. Starting from your back bar on the Blast Bones half of the rotation. Because mind you, the rotation is going to be split into two halves. One with Blast Bones and Detonating Siphon, one with Skeletal Archer and Beast Trap. So starting on the Blast Bones half of the rotation, it'll be Barrage, Injection, Blast Bones, Rapid Strikes, Soul Trap, Detonating Siphon, Rapid Strikes, Rending Slashes, Swap. Second time round, it will be Barrage, Injection, Skeletal Archer, Rapid Trap, Beast Trap, Rapid, Rending Swap. And it's just that. Continued for the entire fight. So I'll do it again quickly now. Pretty simple, right? And now onto ultimate use. Whenever you use your ultimate, you want to be able to block cancel the animation. Or you want to be able to weapon swap the animation. Whichever part of your rotation you're in, you want to use it as soon as it's off cooldown. So for example, if I'm at the very end of my rotation on my front bar, rending slashes, I would cast my ult and then I'm just weapon swap the animation. Let's say for example, it's at the start of my front bar animation like this, then I would cast it, and then I would block cancel the animation and continue. So ideally, you want to be able to either block cancel it, or you want to be able to weapon swap cancel the animation, because it's long. It's really long. Yeah, something that can help you get used to block canceling AoE casts is practicing block cancelling hail. So as soon as you press hail, you want to just tap block, nothing else, and that'll cancel the animation like that. And you can tell you've done it correctly if you see these glitchy arrows sort of just float out in front of you. But otherwise, the animation is very long. For this particular build, you don't want to block cancel hail, barrage, because it kind of, you need it for the general timing of the dots, so to speak. So I'll show you one more time the rotation, and then we'll go into a pass. Side note, you should already know, but you should be light attack weaving between all your casts. So make sure you just light attack before you cast an ability. It's a lot of extra damage, and you need it to build a Reliquance. Other than that, that's the rotation and the build. And yeah, into a pass now. just going over CP quickly because I forgot to during the main section of the video. In your green trees, you want 47 into bashing focus. That's going to help you a lot, just to make sure you're not wasting too much stam whenever you're bash cancelling an animation. Into your middle green tree, you want 100 into Mooncalf and 49 into Tenacity. It's going to give you a lot of regen and a lot of resources back if you ever need to heavy attack, which you might. In all honesty, if your group's not optimized with Hercenes and Sentinel of Archegams and the Master's Restoration stuff, just a lot of stuff for stem specifically, you might have trouble. So just keep that in mind. And into the Shadow, you want 48 into Tumbling, 26 into Shadow Ward. Into the blue tree, in the middle, you want 40 Master at Arms, and then you want 66 into Thaumaturge, 66 Precise Strikes, 34 into Piercing, and 64 into Mighty. The reason Piercing is a little bit lower is because there's a passive in the Necromancer skill tree that gives you physical penetration, so it's not necessary to have it as high. Red tree changes between trails, so you don't need to concern yourself with that.